Good morning. Welcome to the 2022 Excellence Seminar, supported by the NovaBIM. And this is an effort of the BIM Initiative, BIMe Initiative. We are very happy to share with you that we have 823 registration, and myself, Regina Ruschel, will be the host for the first day. I am from the University of Campinas, São Paulo. I'm going to say welcome to you in my language, Portuguese. Therefore, bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite, sejam bem-vindos. The BIMe Initiative is a non-for-profit knowledge generation and sharing effort for volunteers, researchers from across industry and academia. The BIMe Initiative delivers an innovative response to the challenges of digital transformation faced by the built environment. We are researchers, professors, students, practitioners, and academics from all over the world. We congregate around 42 countries. Our mission is to accelerate the digital transformation of the built environment. Our vision is to demonstrate new ways of thinking, researching, learning, and collaborating. Our goals is to help, assist, and support, help practitioners to improve their digital competence, assist organizations to adopt, adapt, and innovate practical digital solutions, support policymakers in improving digital transformation and strategies. Today, the day one of the second Excellence Seminar will be divided in two groups of sessions with a short break in between. First, we'll have digital transformation efforts where we will get to know experiences from America, Africa, Europe, and Asia. Then we'll go to the macro adoption study, which is in its third phase of launching. After the short break, we'll have a support session from NovaBIM and continue with the model use template project update and end with a summary. Send questions after the sessions through the Contact Us page. Materials will be available beyond today in the seminars page. Recordings will be available on our BIMe channel and also right now through these QR codes. Share your thoughts on social media using hashtag Excellence Seminar. Let's start with session 1, Digital Transformation Efforts from Across the World, Lessons Learned from 6 regions. In this session, drivers and champions of international initiatives will discuss their unique experiences and share the lessons to be learned and the challenges to be overcome when promoting digital transformation efforts. We start with Carolina Soto, who is Executive Director of the Plan BIM Confer, Corporación de Fomento de la Producción of Chile, a program of the Chilean government and that promotes the use of BIM for public sector. She has worked both in the development and the application of digital technologies in the architecture, engineering, construction industry in Chile and in the United States, focusing particularly on BIM and its standardization. Carolina, the screen is all yours. We are ready to hear you.
Hello, everyone. Hola, ¿qué tal? Buenos días. Thank you very much for the invitation to Bilal Sukar, to the BIMe Initiative, to Regina, because I'm very happy and excited to be here in this panel with all these great presenters that we'll be hearing today. I am not sure okay, perfect. You're seeing my screen now. So what I want to tell you today is about how we've done this adoption of BIM from the government in Chile. So I would like to start right now with telling you a little bit about what is Plan BIM, which I'm the director. So Plan BIM is the BIM government mandate here in Chile. We formally started in 2016 with two goals. The first one, to require BIM in public projects by 2020, and the second one, to require BIM in private projects through the building permit system by 2025. This is a program led by the government, by Corfu, which is an agency of the Ministry of Economy, and there are other 16 institutions that are participating in the program from the private and the public sector, like different ministries, the Chamber of Construction, and others. And Bilal asked me to bring five challenges. Of course, we have 5,000, so it's really hard to choose five. But I tried to choose some of the ones that we faced mostly in the beginning, and some still. First, of course, we started as many countries that are promoting BIM from the government or from other places of the industry, because we have a very low productivity in the construction industry, even lower than most of the other countries of the OECD. And when we started in 2015, we had very low levels of use of BIM. This has changed. And there was a lot of confusion about what BIM was. It's a technology, it's software, it's 3D models, it's geometry, etc. We had, and we still have, no culture of using standards for information management. This is a difficult thing here, like culturally. BIM at the time, by 2015, was not being widely taught in universities or in technical institutes. This has fortunately, this has changed in time. We have helped to change this. The industry and the state were, and still are, not used to measuring project results. So how much did the project end up costing? How much did it end up being its schedule or its time? When was it due, comparing to when it was supposed to be due, etc. So there are no really KPIs and measures about the outcomes of the projects, private or public projects. And there was, and there's still no real database of public projects. And by this, I mean not only the results of the projects, but just the projects. So if you want to know how many projects the government is building or has built or is planning, and where they are located and how much they cost, you don't have that information. So it's hard to work to improve projects and improve the construction when you don't know what is being built and how that buildings or how that infrastructure is resulting, is coming out. So these are just a few of the challenges. So when we started, we set some lines of actions, and one of the biggest was, of course, standardization. I was saying we don't have a culture of using standards, so this was a very important part of our, and still is a very important part of our work. And we learned very early in the process that, of course, we were starting late. We were starting in 2015, 2016, so we were not going to invent the wheel. We are a small country, so we needed to learn from the international experience. We needed to learn from what was happening, but of course, you cannot just copy. It's not a recipe of how you implement and promote BIM. You need to adapt it. We're a very different country from the ones that we're looking at because we speak a different language. We have a different culture, different economy, different everything. So we started learning from what was happening out there, but adapting it to our own reality. And one of the biggest examples of that process is our BIM standard for public projects, which we published in 2019. This is a document that is today available in Spanish, English, and Portuguese, and it's the base of everything else that we do. So it's the base of different EIRs that we have built for the ministries, for the Air Force, for the judiciary power, and for different types of projects that is being used by the government, that are being used by the government. And as I was saying, we needed to adopt and adapt the international experience and knowledge. So what we did at the moment is that we reviewed and studied all, it felt like all the documents that were out there, standards, protocols, guides, etc., to learn and to see first if we could just translate something and apply it. But it was very hard because we felt that our industry and our public servants needed more explanation if they were going to do and ask and require for BIM properly. So what we did is we studied a lot of documents out there, and we took parts of them, concepts that were in them, and we tried to build a connection, like a thread between the different concepts and parts, so a public servant could understand what to do first, which information to ask for, parameters, definitions, LODs, etc. So it was a more explained and didactical thing for them. And I'm not going into detail of all the documents. I just want to point that the project execution planning guide from Penn State is a very big part of the standard for us. It's been very useful. And I mentioned this, of course, because Professor Mesner is here. And this is a big part of our standard. It's completely properly attributed in the document, but I just wanted to point that out because it's really important and useful for us and for the standard. And that standard is the base for a lot of other material that we have built for the industry, different guides to explain entities. Everything that the government is doing here is based in open BIM and open formats, IFC, etc. We also are trying to help the public sector to get the most value out of what they're doing with BIM. So we have built, for the Ministry of Housing, we have built a platform for automating the reviews that they do for the subsidized housing. And this is ParPro. This is a platform that is today proprietary for the Ministry of Housing. And it's helping us bridge, of course, a lot of gaps. The ministry doesn't have money to purchase a lot of licenses, or doesn't have the time or the money, again, to train all the reviewers in BIM. So these kinds of platforms and are helping them take IFC models that they receive from the private sector and get automatic reviews about compliance of those projects. So we're trying to help in a different ways the public sector to speed up, be more efficient, and do a very good use of the information that they're getting with BIM. We have a lot of actions to directed to people with academia, high schools, universities, technical centers, scholarships, etc. I'm not going into detail with these because I want to go into this. I said in the beginning that we don't have a lot of culture of measuring results. So this is something that we are doing for the government and for the industry. We have set out to do different studies. We call them observatories. One is for how BIM is being taught in Chile. And we have been very happy because when we started, I said BIM was not being widely taught in the universities or technical institutes. And today we've seen these numbers grow from 2016, which is the blue bars, to 2021. We've seen a growth in the incorporation of BIM in different careers related to the industry: architecture, engineering, construction, and others. We also set out to measure how BIM is being included in tenders, if the goal that we set for 2020 was being really accomplished. So we studied almost 2,000 tenders from 2013 to 2020 of different public institutions. And it's a long study. Everything is available in our webpage if you want to see it. But we found a few things. First, we found that from 2013 to 2020, if we counted in number, not really many projects were including BIM, just 7%. But when we focused on analyzing in the investment, the numbers completely changed, because 70% of the investment of the government was being done in projects with BIM, which is something that we are happy about, because it shows that the government is focusing on using BIM in the projects, in the bigger projects, where the risks of being inefficient and going over budget are bigger. Of course, we're not saying that they're not using it in smaller projects, but they're starting through the big projects and the big investment. We also set out to measure how, because it's not only about how many projects are including BIM, but how they are including it. So we analyzed the different concepts that are in the standard, that are in the international standards, like BIM uses, BIM roles, common data environments, asking for BIM execution plans. And we analyzed in time how this has changed. And we're very happy, because by 2020, most of all of these concepts are being included in the different requirements. Of course, we still have a lot to do and a lot of work, but the way in which the government is asking for BIM is changing, which is of course the most important part, because it's not about how many projects with BIM, but it's about if we can make a difference and help the government and the industry in general understand the value of information and using it correctly, and of course having the requirements be standardized and focused on information, and open BIM is a central part of that. So and I there's before I go into the lessons learned, I just wanted to mention, I didn't put this slide in the presentation, but I wanted to mention that this, of course, I'm talking about Chile, but there are a lot of other things happening in Latin America. I'm going to mention it in a few lines after this. But Bilal asked me to finish this by saying which are the lessons that we've learned in the process, and or how we overcame the challenges. One was getting a lot of support from the authorities. In our case, in the beginning, we had the support of the president of the country, so that helped us a lot. Having a dedicated team and defining a leadership and a spokesperson. When the industry here has issues or questions about what to do with BIM, what is happening with the government mandate, they know who to go to talk to, who to ask, where to go. So that has been a very important part of how we have progressed. I mentioned it before, adopting and adapting the international experience is key, especially for a small country like ours. And when we started, there were only, or the most common examples came from Europe and the US. So that's what we started looking for. But I think a lot has happened between 2016 and today. And there are a lot of other examples of other regions and countries. This presentation, this panel is an example of that. There are great examples in Thailand, in Asia in general, in Africa, in Latin America. I was mentioning before that today there are 8 governments in Latin America that are pushing BIM, and we have a network of governments called the Red BIM GovLatam, which is helping us, all the countries, go faster and standardized and aligned in this effort. So there's a lot of out there to learn from in different regions and different countries, different examples. Work collaboratively with the industry, communicate, make the industry and academia part of the process, measure. Of course, this has helped us a lot to prove the benefits and to show the results. And of course, the last one, generating tools, trainings, materials, videos, talks, everything to include the industry and bring everyone on board, so they're not part of the problem, but they're part of the solution of this transformation. And with that, I finish my presentation. Thank you very much again.
Hi, Regina. Can you please unmute?
Oh, sorry for that. Let's go again. Professor John Mesner is director of the Computer Integrated Construction Research Program and a Charles and Eleanor Met Professor for Architecture Engineering, both at Penn State. Of course, he is very much known for his leadership in the development of the BIM Project Execution Planning Guide and the BIM Planning Guide for Facility Owners. And he received in 2021 Distinguished Service Award from the American National Institute of Building Standards and the 2021 Computing in Civil Engineering Award from the American Society of Civil Engineers, and is now a member of the National Academy of Construction. Professor Mesner, the screen is all yours. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Regina and Bilal, and all the other panelists for this invitation to talk today. It is such a pleasure to join everybody, and good morning and good afternoon and good evening, depending on where you are in the world. What I'd like to do today is just give a brief overview of some items that are going on within the United States market, and address some of the questions that Bilal posed to all of us. Just a little background of myself. I do have the privilege of being the director of the BIC research program here at Penn State University in the United States, and we do research in a lot of areas. But today, what I want to do, I'll just start with a very quick state of practice of BIM here in the United States. We have a very large construction market in the US of $1.8 billion and growing. And I think we have a very high level of BIM adoption, especially in building construction, but it's also varied depending upon the area. One thing that we still have a lot of challenges with is consistency among owner BIM requirements. Many of our government clients, the General Services Administration, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers have very rigid and mature BIM requirements, although still expanding. But the private sector is very varied. And we also have many delivery teams that are implementing BIM, but I think we still primarily have those teams focused mainly in designing and authoring a design and coordinating those designs. And we have so much opportunity in some other areas. So I just want to touch on each of these as was requested. So looking at the challenges, the path forward to address some of those challenges and some overall lessons learned. So I'll start with some challenges. As I had mentioned before, I think within the United States, we still have varied levels of adoption. Some projects are extremely advanced in their use of BIM on those projects, and others not so much, or not even implementing BIM on those projects. And I think one of those challenges lies within the owner, and that's really been a key focus of some of the newer standards initiatives here in the United States, is looking at how we can service the owner to gain lifecycle benefits from BIM. Some other items here within the US, I think we consistently have, and I love Carolina's comment about adoptions and a culture of implementing standards. And I think we are challenged with some of that within the US about when we should apply standards and how deeply those standards should go. And I think we have a challenge of moving beyond primarily using BIM for design and coordination and moving that into a more life cycle perspective. And the last item, I think compared to the rest of the world implementation, we certainly also have some challenges in gaining adoption in open BIM strategies as opposed to proprietary strategies and software platforms. And the last one that I'm going to focus a number of additional slides on is this issue of standardization. And I love this quote from Andrew Tannenbaum, and I think it poses one of the challenges that we have, which is the nice thing about standards is that there are so many to choose from. And we have a lot of activity going on within the US focused on the development of standards and common requirements across different projects. But one of our challenges is trying to keep these efforts and initiatives coordinated. So I want to talk about some of the things that are going on right now that I think are very positive and advancing some of our initiatives. And one is a significant increased emphasis on leveraging BIM for infrastructure projects. This is the roadmap that was developed by the U.S. Department of Transportation in the Federal Highway Administration, looking at a 10-year roadmap for embedding BIM into highway and transportation projects. We also have organizations funding these efforts. This is an example of AASHTO, which is an association of our departments of transportation, really focused on looking at how they can fund and support and invest in getting BIM adopted throughout the transportation system. And so it's been extremely interesting to watch this investment and the significant developments that are going on in the transportation network. I mentioned before the challenge of having so many standards, and I think one of our goals and emphasis areas more recently is to see how we can get everybody together and rowing in the same direction across many of those organizations that I listed earlier that are engaged in BIM areas. And one key significant area that we're looking at to do that is a new initiative from the National Institute of Building Sciences, which is focused on the development of a U.S. national BIM program, really a place to convene these different organizations and make sure that the standards initiatives that are going on throughout the U.S. and international markets is coordinated so that everybody in the industry can take advantage of them. If you're not familiar with NIBS, NIBS is a organization established in 1974 by the U.S. Congress, really focused on both the public and private sector and achieving nationally accepted standards and other technical provisions to advance the industry. The new U.S. National BIM program really set out a vision to look at how we can accelerate digital transformation in the built asset industry, and has a mission to transform lifecycle information management practices through using next generation standards and the adoption of those standards and practices in the industry. The program has really 6 key goals. I have these listed here, but one of the key ones that I've spent a lot of my time in is looking at these next generation standards, but also looking at how owners and teams adopt these standards. We're also looking at building a community, laying out a legal framework for BIM adoption, and education and training. Those 6 goals translated into work streams, and we are just now getting these work streams started as we bring together owner leadership, project teams, and standards and guidelines. One of the other things that we're really focused on is how we can leverage so much of the great international standards activities that have been going on and bring those into our U.S. market and really build and align our local U.S. national BIM standards with the international standards so that we can really take advantage of all the standards activities. And this image is really showing that integration of the international standards, our national standards, and then the adoption of those standards in practice through both projects and programs. A key part of that is we're in the process of developing version 4 of the US National BIM standard, which will be significantly different than some of our previous versions, but also building up off of that previous content. So this is the version 3 area, but really we're focused on in version 4, trying to simplify, put together core requirements that owners and project teams can adopt, and really making them standards that are at an implementation level. The U.S. National BIM program also put out a roadmap. This is showing an emphasis on the first 5 years and through 2030 of how we are planning to build out some of the key outcomes of the National BIM program. So just going to finish up with some quick lessons learned. I think one of the lessons, since we've been involved in BIM adoption here in the United States for many years now, is that I'm very pleased that that we are making progress both in the U.S. and it is great to see the progress of others throughout the world. It's always a little slower than I hope it will be, but I am really encouraged by the progress that's going on. Another key item that is a lesson learned for me, maybe personally, is that we have many standards organizations, and BIM standards are political. I think we really need to work together and help put together a sound foundation that can really benefit everybody. A third lesson is, in order for BIM to be adopted, our standards initiatives really need to make adoption easy. And I think that's been a key focus of some of the efforts in the new version of the U.S. National BIM standard, but I think is a critical thing for us to always keep in mind when we look at standards and requirements. And the fourth one is we must work together. There's some great things going on throughout the world, and it is great to be involved in this event and others to share all of our lessons. So with that, I want to thank everybody for listening and look forward to our future discussions. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for your talk. Right on time, 10 minutes. It's very nice to hear you, and especially your personal learned lessons about standards there. I share with you them also. We'll go on then now to hear Moses Itanola. Moses Itanola is the Executive Director of BIM Africa. He is a quantity surveyor and a construction manager, advancing sustainability and technology in the African construction industry. As a Pan-Africanist, he has practiced in numerous design and construction projects and presented at conferences across various African countries. Moses, this is my first time with you. It is a pleasure, and now the screen is yours.
Thank you, Regina. It's a pleasure to also be here, representing our dearly beloved continent. My name is Moses, just as Regina introduced, and I'm the Executive Director for BIM Africa. We're a civil society organization advancing the digital disruption across the African built industry. Over the past years of our inception, we've had opportunity to advance our activities to various African countries, some of which are highlighted in the map, and we are still working out to ensure that we can cut across the entire region of the continent. So like I said, we're a civil society organization, and here's a picture of some of our activities, participating in various events, various activities, and various projects across the continent with the sole vision of advocating and advancing the adoption of digital technologies in the construction industry. Our advocacy is reinforced by an extensive academic and market research program. We've published the African BIM report for 2 editions. The first edition in 2020 and the next edition was published in November 2022. And also we've had certifications programs, some of which are perhaps in the pipeline, roundtable discussions, seminars, webinars, online events, physical events, and of course trying to see how we can adapt some of our local standards, chapters, volunteering and professional development opportunities. We had the BIM Africa Innovation Awards 2021, and we also had the BIM Harambee event in collaboration with BIM community in South Africa, and various activities. Our volunteer network is spread across the continent, composed of academics, practitioners, researchers, students, advocates, and trainers across the globe. And yes, part of our activity also is the BIM Africa Summit that is planned to be held in Marrakesh in Morocco next year, May, with a focus on digital advancement of the built environment, so a sustainable Africa. We're trying to bring together people across the continent to discuss and share innovative technologies and case studies on how best to develop our continent. So for this presentation, I'll be dwelling much on the African BIM Report 2022, which we published on the 1st of November in 3 languages, because Africa is quite unique and diverse and multilingual, comprising various countries with various languages. And so to ensure that we can reach out to as much as possible audience, we had the African BIM Report 2022 in English, in French, and in Arabic. And that's also composed of work from the Research and Development Committee of the initiative. So a high level look into the outcomes of the report. We had about 1,100 survey entries to the survey for the report, and this composed of professionals and individuals from 39 African countries. Like I earlier said, the report was published in 3 languages, and it composed of 5 expert opinion, professors and industry experts across 3 countries. And then we have also project showcase from 5 African countries. Typically, the breakdown of the survey ensured that there was a regional distribution across the continent, because it's quite a very vast region with individual context to various countries and regions. And so it was critical for us to ensure that the survey reached out to every critical region across the continent. And you can see distribution across Central, North, East, Southern, and Western Africa. So now going to the outcomes, we realized that in comparison to the survey in 2020, the awareness of building information modeling is still very high. In 2020, we had about 90.4% of the audience reporting awareness, and this year there's still a very tiny margin of 88%. However, there's now a sharp contrast between awareness and the adoption and implementation in projects, where we see that only about 44% of the people who have taken the survey indicated that they've adopted BIM, and a very high percentage, 47%, have still not adopted. So that posed a challenge to us as an initiative to ensure that we continue our advocacy. We also had some of the projections as to the current state of BIM and the future projections, and we see that compared to 2020, in 1 year's time, only a few people expect that they would use BIM in their projects, whereas as compared to in 2020, where we had in 3 years' time, we are projected that what is the volume of people who will use BIM by 2023. And so all of these interactions try to buttress the outcomes of the survey in 2020, that the level of people who had predicted that they would by now are perhaps still using it. And then in 5 years' time, in 3 years' time, in 1 year's time, what is supposed to be the ratio of people who will be using it. Only a very significant people expect that in 5 years' time, about 52.4% expect that in 5 years' time, they will use BIM for all of their projects. So in comparison with 2020 also, we realized that even though a few people don't know of their knowledge of BIM at that time, now that is very clear, and so they can predict if they would in 2023, in 3 years' time. And all of these are giving us quite a challenge for our own initiative to ensure that we can advance our activities and drive the adoption of BIM across the continent. So that has now challenged us as an initiative towards ensuring that we can increase the activities that we currently do, some of the events, some of the training, some of the capacity development, partnership with corporate organizations, more of research and partnership with some of our tertiary institutions across the continent to see that we can advance people's adoption of building information model. Yes, there's a very high level of awareness, but that doesn't translate to adoption across the continent. For our own continent, the challenges that we realize in then adopting this is typically the emerging economic challenges for most of the African country in terms of the income capacity of companies and of individuals to be able to acquire the necessary skills and the necessary infrastructure and necessary technology required to adopt BIM. There's also a knowledge deficit, and then the widespread use of quirks and illegal softwares is also on the high. There's an infrastructure gap across most of African countries and the current instability facing most of the countries also. Then there's also the reluctance to invest in technology because people are used to traditional practices and they will resist any change from that. And of course, organizational commitment, a lack of organizational commitment to invest in the necessary resources to breach this knowledge gap. Then, importantly, I see that the two previous speakers, Professor John Mesner and Caroline, had mentioned standards. So those are part of the challenges that we have faced. Well, there's the missing regulatory frameworks, standards, public support policies in place to support people's deployment of BIM in their project. And of course, language barriers in most of the African countries where we see a high level of people speaking various languages compared to the national and central one. And so all of these are then giving us some lessons that one, it is very critical that a bottom-up push is required to ensure that we can drive BIM adoption across the African continent, rather than perhaps other models that have been adopted across the globes where we have government mandates. Because of the lack of necessary infrastructure and knowledge deficits across the continent, and infrastructure, a government mandate would only just complicate the adoption of or unsophisticated processes, and so it will then make complexities into the adoption. Then importantly, African content solutions are required to be able to fast track the adoption of BIM, and so African built technologies, African built processes, African designed standards that will understand the context of the continent, the context of the processes which are currently existing in the process. And then the major gaps are a skill gap and a resource gap, and there are major bottlenecks that are needed to be resolved before the adoption of BIM can be fast-tracked. And all of the skill gap, we are working very, very tenaciously to ensure that we can breach this and ensure that people across the continent have the necessary knowledge to adopt BIM. So thank you very much, and I hope to see you all in Marrakesh next year in May. Thank you.
Well, Moses, thank you so much for your talk. I really caught to you when you said and when you showed the challenges you are facing in an African country. They seem the same as we are facing here in Brazil. Thank you so much for your presentation. Now we go on. And you were very much on time. Thank you too.
Thank you.
Now we have the time to hear Martin Lafleur, who is General Manager of the Quebec BIM Group in Canada. He is manager and a professional in strategic planning and economic development with more than 20 years of experience, including 12 years designing, setting up, and managing associations aimed at bringing together actors in the industrial field. Martin, it's a pleasure to have you here, and now the screen is all yours.
Thank you very much, Professor Regina, Rochelle. It's my great pleasure to address the entire BIMe initiative community today and to give you an overview of the digital transformation efforts underway in Canada and in my own province, Quebec. Oops, sorry. Okay, there we go. Sorry. So the Quebec BIM Group, my organization, was established 13 years ago. Today it brings together 300 individual members and 50 company partners, ranging from engineering and architectural firms to general and specialized contractors, technology providers, contracting parties, and academia. We are the only BIM community in Canada operating at the provincial level, and we are proud affiliates of the Building Smart Canada network. In its action plan for the construction sector, the Quebec government established that although experienced strong growth, the province's construction sector was not sustaining the level of productivity needed for delivering the built asset the province requires. Among the many causes of that productivity gaps, two factors stand out. The government recognizes that building information modeling is at the heart of the digital transformation of the construction industry, but it has still a long ways to go before being generally implemented across the industry. The digital transformation of construction companies must be supported by government and private industry stakeholders. So in its own way, the Quebec BIM Group's mission is to help promoting and accelerating the adoption of BIM through the construction industry in Quebec. We operate according to a three-pronged approach. So first, we organize many conferences and social gatherings during the year, such as to give our members opportunities to meet and exchange and learn. Just 3 weeks ago, we organized a Building Smart International Summit in Montreal, and we plan in participating with our members in many international conferences and trade shows across the world next year. Secondly, we work with all stakeholders in the industry to promote and push the implementation of BIM across the industry. The Quebec BIM Group leads the multi-sectoral table on BIM and integrated design process, composed of 20 of the most important associations of the construction sector and 6 public institutions in Quebec. The objective of the table is to inform and coordinate the actions of all the associative stakeholders of the construction industry in digital transformation and deployment of BIM. In addition, we were given the responsibility of coordinating the industry working groups of the Quebec government roadmap for building information modeling. This initiative was launched in the summer of 2021 by the Quebec Treasury Board to help all public contractor operators of the province develop an action plan to implement BIM in the coming years. Thirdly, we provide management services also to operate public and professional programs on digital transformation and the deployment of BIM, like the Initiative québécoise pour la construction 4.0 for the Quebec government. With the help of our partner, the Institut de Gouvernance Numérique, we have performed more than 400 digital audits to this day, helping companies of the construction sector evaluate their mastery of the level of BIM and provide them with a strategic plan to implement BIM step by step. Finally, we, with the collaboration of Building Smart Canada, we will carry out a professional certification program of Building Smart International across Canada in 2023. This will be our first program to assess and certify skills and proficiency levels of BIM professionals and other managers across Canada. So Canada has not yet widely adopted BIM. What we find today is our small but dynamic BIM communities across the country, namely in British Columbia, Calgary, Winnipeg, Saskatchewan, Toronto, Ottawa, and naturally in Quebec. There are three major, larger and better known regulating associations, two that are national, Building Smart Canada and Digital Transformation, formerly known as CAN-BIM, and one provincial, the Quebec BIM Group. Their actions have mainly focused on community building, training and developing reference tools like the Canadian Practice Manual for BIM. So in its recent study, the CSA Group's finding confirmed that overarching challenges that the Canadian built asset industry faces in initiating and sustaining its digital transformation, specifically around the adoption and implementation of BIM. So these challenges lie primarily in three areas. Lack of consistent demand by clients, lack of appropriate skills and competencies, and incompatibility of capabilities and workflows across built asset value chains. These findings highlighted the absence of a coherent operational framework for BIM adoption and implementation in BIM in Canada, the consequences of which are fragmentation and duplication of efforts and resources, as well as potential for the development of contradictory directions in this area. This could lead to waste and missed opportunities. Actually, it does presently, which could have significant economic, social, and environmental impacts. Indeed, while BIM use is increasingly delivering tangible benefits to stakeholders across Canada, these benefits are localized and asymmetric. In essence, the absence of structure or an overarching strategy seriously hinders the progression and full potential of digital transformation in the Canadian built asset industry. So to overcome these challenges and broaden the scale and scope of economic, social, and environmental benefits, a Canadian position regarding policy and standards on BIM adoption and implementation must be adopted, and we're aiming at that. Such as a position can and should rely on a significant work that has been done around the globe to standardize and develop guidance for government agencies and industry practitioners, namely the ISO 19650 series. Many of these resources could be adopted or adapted within Canada. However, while beneficial, these resources alone will not ensure the successful adoption and implementation of BIM in the Canadian built asset industry. They must be enacted and supported through targeted policy instruments, be they regulatory, economic, or other, and though clear implementation pathways with the objective of structuring and guiding how information is acquired, generated, exchanged, processed, managed, and consumed through the life cycle of a built asset. So I thank you very much for your attention. Thank you. Can't hear you.
Hi, Regina. Can you please unmute?
Well, thank you so much for your talk, Martin. Now we go on to Sanphawat. He is head of standards at the Thai BIM Association and Asia BIM Collaboration Group community in Thailand. Sanphawat leads Archon Thailand digital transformation through the development and delivery of future digital strategy and implementation. He has passion for designing intelligent buildings and smart cities, developing energy efficient solutions to ensure optimal building performance, sustainable development, asset management, and digital transformation. Sanphawat, the screen is all yours. Thank you to be here with us today, sharing.
Well, thank you, though. Really appreciate that. All right. So, well, my first time, and I'm a representative of Thailand, and of course, it's Asia as well. A bit of my background as elaborating. So, fortunate enough, I do have a background on both education and professions, and today is on behalf of Thai BIM associations that would like to share a bit of information of BIM movement in Thailand. So, what is Thai BIM Association? So we are one of the largest users community and professions in BIM and design industries and construction, of course. We are quite young, but we're moving forward quite strong and fast. So we are 3 years old. Our mission is very simple then. So first, number one would be inclusive. So acting as a performance and the actions of organizations or, well, associations. We're not top-down managed because we're not part of a government. So we driving, we are connecting, we are blending to the community to ensure that we can promote, our BIM technology, digitizations, BIM sector relevant to that, in order to improve the built environment, design constructions, or even asset management. So we are trying to, helping and facilitating, so improving any types of competency and so on. So that's this our mission for organization. And of course, yet again, is right now the members over 600 across different industrial ecosystems. So we do have a investor, developer, real estate. We do have education, design, discipline, constructions, contractors, of course, and on especially on those supplier as well. So yet again, it's very, very interesting part that all members now to contributing and supporting. You can see it's really obvious now the organizations is part of associations moving forward because of the local industry, especially on private segment, drive this BIM, economics business. One of a bit of information and data is the movement over, in Thailand, part of the growth and the movement. Back into 2016, that would be our, big boom that what we call. The growth of margins over than 300%, of course, and then afterwards, respectively, in 2017. So we start to know from part of BIM understanding by only modeling, moving forward into collaborations. So yet again, so 2017, we get into expanding of common data environment, a CDE, and we're using cloud system and collaborating, etc. And then back for another following years, 2018, now it's time moving forward from built environment, part of the building segment is moving forward into infrastructure, sport, and transport. So now Thailand using BIM across all different sizes and scales of business. One of the challenge over in Thailand skills and demanding quite demandingly. And so because right now we have to improve, because the demanding on the business segments, a lot of infrastructure has been built, a lot of smart city, a lot of building has been built, and mixed use, a lot of complexity. Economy is moving forward to Asia, especially Southeast Asia. Is now the demanding and skill. We have to get into the challenge that we don't have enough people to picking up the right skill. The synergy model, meaning we have to do some collaboration and etc. And of course, in part of different level of use, different BIM challenge and investment as well. That's why we started questions about where that we can use, which type of tools that we actually can use. We get into those kind of part of open BIM, and of course that every single investor now, because majority of demanding from investors, so we will targeting where would be the right visible return on investment, etc. And yet again, part of Asia economy, because now a lot of big movement and design constructions toward into Southeast Asia, and all the clients and collaborative across Asia, that would be one of major factors as well back into this year. Big image pictures, if you want to mapping out the whole ecosystems, part of the stakeholder relevant to the projects then. So, dark green will be really active, of course, as part of the owner and investor really interested in demanding, see the opportunity of digitization, investment, and digital transformations. That's why they willing to support budgeting and the project and support or facilitating all ecosystems. While the others, we still moving forward in order to develop upskills, especially on quantity surveyors, part of the vendor, subcontractor, we need to building up, and of course, part of the designers, mainly majority that will be the first one to actually picking up a new tools. One of the lucky things as suppliers, now we do have BIM Object Thailand. So part of the whole ecosystem, suppliers now started moving forward, building up their own 3D, and BIM Object Thailand will be one of the organizations actually contributing, putting up all BIM object. So in order to feed in back into the ecosystem, and this would be elaborating is once we talk about the kind of different variations of BIM use. Of course, the fundamental from the growth and understanding of maturity in Thailand, of course, 3D part of visualizations, modeling, coordination would be greatest fundamental for now. That would be norm that what we can call that. The rest of that, in order to get into some scheduling, planning, and of course, cost estimation, etc., moving forward into asset management, we are moving forward for. One of really good initiative survey with our Thai BIM associations coordinating with Thai contractor associations now contributing. Want to survey over than 50 different majority contractors in Thailand. Over than 50% is now using BIM. Of course, different scales of the project. High demanding has to be larger scale, of course, for sure. Over than 70% with they do not have a plan yet to how they're going to move forward for. And majority of them has been using BIM in order to make some production actually happen and to see a value and benefit for it. A lot of lesson learned and suggestion, of course, that they will moving forward for demanding based upon TOR. If the TOR say that they require BIM, any particular project requiring BIM, that we moving forward, make decisions would be easier. And of course, the one of majority thing that would be common issues for the standardized as well. Part of BIM synergy in Thailand, a lot of different organizations, council, professional organizations, engineering, architecture as well. Now we collaborating, building up a lot of guidelines, and recently even Thai BIM Association, we are contributing as one of major standard of guide for BIM object and materials in order to put in the supply into the ecosystem. So there's a good movement over in Thailand. One of the challenges, as I said earlier, is that part of the futures, Asia future possibility. Now, there's a contributions of white paper, would be a movement over the 6 different countries. Right now, we sharing our thought. You start from Singapore, Hong Kong, Taiwan, India, and also Vietnam, and of course, Thailand. Now we are looking forward to have a strong collaboration. Recently, we signed MOU. We're starting up a group called ABC, of course, Asia BIM Collaboration Group. Our missions in order to collaborate and coordinating and exchange information, sharing case study. As we understand it, a lot of business on design and construction moving forward into Southeast Asia. So now it's time to actually talking the same languages then. This is a whole part of connections. We have only one mission. Our manifesto is that we want to enhance the digital delivery transformation, the whole built environments over across Asia. Anyhow that we actually can collaborate, anyhow that we actually can exchange information in order to build Asia growth and ecosystem, digitalization, of course. Our key strategy across in of 4 pillars here. Improve the skill set, because we are able to actually moving people around from Singapore to Thailand, from Thailand to India, from Vietnam to Hong Kong, for instance. So how we ensure that skill has been collaborated, how we ensure the skill has been evenly, what would be the right system in order to exchange information? What about the standardized? What about the case study? What about workflow of different kind? And all together is that would type into common standard, because now clients could be from Singapore and workers could be from Thailand or even Vietnam. So how we actually work across different countries. So this would be our future looking forward for in order to empower collaboration in Asia. So so that would be all my contributions from Thailand and Asia then.
Hello, thank you so much. I was wondering, I don't know if Tina is here with us right now. I just have to have a word from backstage.
Hi, Gina. No, Tina hasn't joined us, so maybe we could proceed with the panel. Thank you.
All right, then. Well, we have time then for questions and answers. I have a first one for Dr. Sanphawat. Could you give us detail on the Thailand BIM object material guideline?
Right. Yep. We like to let's talk in this way. Part of supplier would be the last person in ecosystem, knowing, understanding what to do with BIM. While we all designers and contractors building their own object, which doesn't make sense. The best person who understanding how to build object like door, panels, window has to be a supplier. So this will be majority questions in order to accelerate, enhance ability and bring the supplier into the BIM ecosystems. So we in this type of the standard, we elaborated what would be the right information, how they manage model, physical geometries as well as the information. And so we introduced this as a broad guideline for supplier, but actually it's not only a supplier. Whoever is read this type of guideline, it has to be the whole ecosystem though. So that would be starting point for a supplier. So if they have no idea and want to join into the BIM ecosystem, has to read our standard.
Here in Brazil, we are focusing on developing regulation on BIM object, which has emphasis on information associated to uses. Do you also have this approach?
Yes, we do. Before we come across to that, we have a workshop across like, user, even developer. And we questions a lot, how we use information and when we can use information. So the supplier would understand that how they want to prepare the information. For instance, we discussed about like this. There are 2 different objects. One would be qualifications on shops, doing some assembling. One would be a working procedures moving forward as a part of model development. So this type of communications, I think that would be the kind of outcome of workshop across. So we brought in designers, contractor as well, and we projecting what type of information they need in every single deliverable milestone. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Martin, I would like to ask you, can you give us more detail on your access and certificate skills, the certification that you are putting on country level?
Okay, well, it's going to be set up next year, but basically it's the certification program that was developed by Building Smart International, where it's already given in I think close to 30 countries across the world. Canada was a bit late in the game, so we're providing this. So it's basically training. It's the basic program, and so there's a training process towards basic knowledge of BIM assessment, and then there's the certification program that is to certify basic skills. So it's really at the basic level at this stage.
Well, thank you so much. Here in Brazil, we're looking for to install a Building Smart chapter, but we have a question here from Fernanda Machado. What is the biggest challenge in promoting cultural change in Latin American countries? Maybe this goes for you, Carolina.
That's a hard question because there's no one big challenge. There's a few, of course. There's this reality of scarcity. Of course, there's not many resources to train, to get licenses for the people who have to have licenses, etc. But I would think the main challenge is probably the same as in other parts of the world, which is human, like the people resisting to changing how they have been doing things for a long time. So this is a thing that we are working with or working to change in Chile and in the countries of Latin America that are part of our community, of our network. And also, I think I was mentioning in my presentation, there's this cultural thing we are used sometimes to not use standards, not do things in a more organized and systematized way. So when you want to bring a change like a digital transformation like BIM, you need to change people's minds and ways of doing. So this is a hard thing, but we're working on it.
Yes, I always say BIM has a very big list of benefits, but it's not easy, right? I have a question for Mesner on this subject, and then I'll go to yours, Argavan, Professor Mesner. So how do we make it easy if it's difficult?
I think that's a real challenge. I do believe that sometimes we tend to have information out there that is more challenging or at an audience that we need to just simplify the message and really put together, for lack of a better word, standard, straightforward, simple processes that people can use and reuse as they go about their work activities. And so I think that's been one of the keys that we've focused on is in our next version of the National BIM standard is just trying to get to a consistent, simplified set of items that teams can implement and then build up off of those. And so I think the more advanced adopters and implementers have worked through some of their own systems, but how do we keep the core of that or the base of that simple so that it enables early adoption by a broader group?
Right. Now let's go to argument questions. It's for Dr. Sanphawat. How to make sure that one object is readable in different BIM tools? Is there a modeling guideline or minimum information requirements for suppliers?
Yep. We're working on the phase 2 is right now is on technical part. We has been testing our IFC. It has to get into neutral, model standard somehow in order to transfer to different application, of course. I think what we get really close is on naming standard. So we had a workshop across software applications developer, big name. Or any which technical across into galvanizes kind of across the different any application willing to change or adapt somehow. So yeah, we come across with the guideline naming convention for that, and we're working on phase 2 is right now put together with some classification, of course. Bringing up some guideline tip and tools, we work collaborative with those applications provider. It has to be really technical, from one to another. That's totally different. So we're asking them to actually helping out part of attachment and guideline. Yes, we do. We kindly prepare a technical part as tip and tools.
Well, thank you so much. I think we go now for the last question, and this is for Moses. Moses, it called my attention that you pointed out that the movement you see for building adoption across Africa is bottom up. And it
Yes.
seems consistent because Africa is a continent with much diversity in culture and language. Can you explain it more to us?
Yes, so with saying that the approach that would work would be bottom up is tied to the understanding that government mandates and public policy, a top down approach, would mean that people would be first to adopt BIM. And because there are no fundamental successes to be able to ensure that adoption can be successful, then there's the tendency that there will be complicated and illegalities in the process. And so it's essential that a bottom-up approach, starting from education, starting from private entities, starting from individual companies and individuals learning and acquiring these skills before you can then scale up to perhaps the government or to management and a lot of the high-level decision makers, ensures that the necessary capacity to be able to adopt whatever policy then comes on is available. Because it's filled with a lot of countries having diversity in their various countries, a common approach also may be difficult, and so individual countries and individual entities need to adopt processes or standards that fit into their context and into their culture and represent the challenges that they have, and perhaps even addresses those challenges before such government mandate can then be successful. In the instance where we have government mandate, the market and the industry is forced to adopt it, and then there's the adoption of incomplete processes on standardized tools or perhaps quirks and regular items. Thank you.
Well, actually, this question I had was the same as Daniel. Daniel also put this question here on the commentary, but now we have a question from Mohammed Mayouf. Mohammed asked us, this question is for all the panelists, and maybe we can finish with this. Are there any emphasis on stressing the importance of data lifecycle in BIM projects? So how is the form and the format of data exchange once used by stakeholders? I think the question is on interoperability, data exchange by stakeholders.
Yeah, I can provide some response from the U.S. perspective, I mean, I think we're seeing more and more owners getting engaged in putting together more significant requirements for information exchanges into their life cycle process. I think that's very encouraging to see the owners outlining what information they need to better operate and maintain their facilities, and in what formats they need that information to bring into their system. So I think it's very encouraging to see the increased interest from owners in lifecycle information management.
Yes. Can I add something?
Yes, of course.
This is a big issue here in Chile for the government, because this we're still working with the public sector in order for them to understand that they need information to operate and maintain their assets, because here we have a lot of big buildings that when you go and ask, how are you, where is the information about the equipment and everything that you have inside this big 100,000-meter hospital, and it's boxes of information that no one knows exactly where they are. So it's a very important part for the owners of different infrastructure to put focus on getting information that they can use for the whole life cycle. In our case, it's the government, so they own a lot of infrastructure, and they have information and they lose it and they don't know where it is. So this is a big thing. It's here. It's a work in progress, but it's a main focus that everyone that is working with owners that are managing assets should be helping them understand.
Well, thank you so much, Carolina, Martin, Sanphawat, John Mesner, and Moses, to be here with us today. It was a panel where we could understand BIM adoption in countries, continents, moment where each one is right now. Very rich knowledge shared, and great opportunity to have you all together here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, though.
Now, then we move on for maybe our 10-minute break, and we'll be here. Just let me know from backstage below if we do have a break or we just go on.
Hi, Gina, totally up to you. Would like to have a break now or in after session 2?
Okay, so let's have a 10-minute break so we can stretch up, and we'll be back soon. All right, then?
Perfect. Thank you.
Oh, hi there. We're back after a short break, and let's continue then. We start now session 2 with the macro adoption study, which will present phase 3 of launching. In this section, the macro adoption team, which we call in the BIMe Initiative Project Key, will share what they have been developing over the past 2 years, and will announce a major expansion in their data collection effort. Please, Mohammed, would you like me to pass the slide?
I'm okay, Regina. Thank you very much. I can do them. Okay. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone, depending on where you are, and welcome to this session. In this session, we will launch our new phase of the macro adoption project or macro adoption study. If you're not familiar with this study, this has been going for a while. The aim has been always the same, which is really to develop an approach that assists policymakers in developing and assessing the macro BIM diffusions at market level. And the team is this wonderful team you see on the screen. We have Bilal sitting quietly in the background, despite his the director behind everything you see today. And you will hear in a while from Eduardo, Danny, and Cristiani, who are core members of this macro adoption team. A little bit of background about this project. This project has been going for a while, as I mentioned before, and you can see the 3 main phases. The orange phase, phase 1, dates really back to almost 10 plus years, when we identified the issues. This is the sort of issues that our keynote speakers, our presenters were talking about: the lack of, the lack of guidance, the lack of models or tools to guide policymaker implement BIM adoption. So in that phase, we developed our seminal research in terms of models and tools that could help policymakers to adopt, to develop policies for digital transformation at market level. Towards the end of that orange phase, phase 1, we started getting appointment from government to advise them, and we did some work with the Brazilian government. Then you have the purple phase, phase 2, which is the longest one. In this phase, we did 2 main things. We extended our data collection as part of our own research effort, but also we made those tools available to the industry to use them and collect data. And we started analyzing what common team between countries in terms of adoption, try to transfer lesson from one country to another. And I would say we did more than 30 country assessment. Some countries were done more than once. And also in the purple phase, we did lots of as well advisory work for other government across South America, North America, Europe. I wouldn't mention specific governments. And many countries, community of practices, in many countries that have used the models and tools to collect data and analyze macro adoption. Then you have now the phase 3, the green phase that we are launching today. And what we realized two years ago, we realized that we are still the only group who is providing tools for and models for macro BIM adoption. However, and so we needed really to make this study more basically expanded in a way that we need new tools, we need better tools basically, and we need to be able to expand it geographically across so many countries. And we need a structure in place to enable us to do that expansion. So this is what we are talking about today in phase 3. So here we are today. This is really a great moment for us. We've been working hard for 2 years. The team you have seen before, I can't count the hour we put in. So you will see later on, Cristiani will explain the approach. Eduardo will explain the deliverable and artifact we worked on over the last 2 years, and Danny will explain the structure we have in place to launch it internationally, and will outline as well opportunities for you to get involved. What's our vision really, or an aim, overarching aim? We are not shy about it. It's been 10 years plus we work on it, and we are still, I think, almost the only, I would say, credible macro adoption approach. So we want to be the world-leading research effort in this space for macro-scale BIM adoption, policy development, and digital transformation. So I'll pass on now to Cristiani to talk about the approach, the new approach that we are adopting in phase 3.
Thank you, Mohammed. Now I'm here. Hello, everybody. Now I'm here to explain a little bit about the phase 3 and the complementary studies. In that phase, we have 3 complementary studies: policy environment, education landscape, and organizational adoption. The first one, the policy environment, is to establish whether, when, and how policies are being enacted by policymakers to facilitate BIM adoption and digital transformation. The second, education landscape, is to establish the diffusion of digital transformation topics across educational institutions and programs. And the last one, the organizational adoption, is to establish the adoption of digital transformation tools, workflows, and protocols within organizations. In summary, what we want is position the macro adoption more clearly at the national level. Professor Eduardo, please continue.
Okay, hi everyone. I will talk a little bit about what we've been doing in the last couple of years. We started with the survey questions. As Cristiano just explained, we have 3 different types of studies. So we prepared like more than 100 questions, but we try to keep it's at a minimum, but still able to capture the key adoption indicators that we need. Then we prepared the study protocols. Again, 3 different workflows for each of the studies, because some of them try to assess like the region as a role, but not in a statistical sense, but based on facts, like for example in the policy environment study. And the others have a statistical character, like the organizational adoption. So different protocols for each study. Then we input all these questions in our assessment tools, which is the assessor. There's not only the questions themselves, but there's a logic. For example, can skip some questions depending on the answers and so on. Then we prepared the study coordinators' profiles. Again, each study requires a different profile from the coordinator, a different background, a different relationship in the region, so that he or she can get participants from adequate profile. Then we wrote a collaboration agreement template that is to be signed by the study coordinators. And more recently, we finished our macro adoption project website, which is shown in the next slide. Here's the front page of our new website, which is online at macroadoption.com. And the next slide shows finally one screenshot inside Assessor showing like the statements that we have linked to each of the questions. We prepared this so that we can, regardless of the text of each question, we know what kind of information it gets. It will help a lot in the analysis phase for us to derive the key adoption indicators. Okay, Danny, we'll talk about the study coordinators. Danny.
Thank you, Eduardo. Thank you very much. So with all the study designs finalized, that is my colleagues presented, so now we are ready to work with multiple collaborators across the world. So here on this slide, you can see the organization of roles for every region. For example, you see there on top, team members is one of us. It's either Mohammed, Bilal, Eduardo, Cristiano, or myself, who we will be working closely with a region liaison. This region represents a market, country, or any set of countries. For each of the studies, policy environment, education landscape, and organizational adoption, we will have study coordinators. And this is the call at this point for study coordinators for this project. So they will be working closely with the region liaison, as you can see there, like the three on the third row. And these study coordinators are going to invite participants in every region to respond to our survey questions that Eduardo just explained. So this is different roles, but if you can return, please, one slide. There could be the case that one study coordinator acts at the same time as a region liaison, as it is shown there, like in the middle, or one study coordinator can lead one or more studies at the same time. So that's the organization of each region. Next slide, please. And in this recruitment of study coordinators from every region, we have highlighted here the key responsibilities and key attributes that will vary according to the study. But overall, the key responsibilities are regarding the management of the data collection, the data analysis, and the publication of results in each region. To do that, each study coordinator will receive training on the study designs and the assessment platform, so they are ready to invite participants and start the data collection process. As part of the work and as part also of the study designs, we would like to ensure the data reliability and to collect the level of evidence of each of the responses that we receive, and then analyze the data and publish the results. And that is for each of the studies. In the case of the key attributes, we will be looking forward to working with individuals representing public organizations, universities, or not-for-profit associations or community groups that are actively promoting digital transformation in each region. So this is the key responsibilities and attributes for the study coordinators. Next, please. So Eduardo just shown the website. So we have put in the website several documents, the study protocols for each of the 3 studies, the study coordinators' profiles for each study as well, and the collaboration agreement template that describes the rights and responsibilities in this exchange and collaboration. So individuals, people who are present and who are hearing us, who are interested in becoming a study coordinator for their region, please, we invite you to go to the website, read these documents, and submit an expression of interest. That is on the next slide, please. It is a form that we have put together for this recruitment. So you can visit the macroadoption website, macroadoption.com. You can use the QR code on the right as well. And we will be looking forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this presentation. Now we go on to the next session. It was very nice to follow your work and see how much it has evolved. And it's happy to see it launching and to see much effort done in the background. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We have anticipated the break, and now we go to session 3, which is cloud-based data and information management on a whole asset lifecycle with NovaBIM. It's a presentation of our supporter, which we really appreciate. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Regina. We're just a little bit ahead of time, so Felix hasn't joined us yet. So we've just maybe got a few minutes before he joins the session. I don't know if there's something else that we need to add as a continuation from the last session, just while we wait for Felix to join us.
Oh, okay. All right then.
Thank you.
So let's go back to discussing.
Hello. I didn't mean to show my face in this session, but welcome to all. So we have 10 minutes until we get Felix online. I encourage people watching us on YouTube to add questions, especially to session 2 participants if they're still online. I will answer on their behalf in case they're offline at the moment until we get Felix online. So I'll leave you with this comment to start with. One of the best comments for being late. So thank you, Ricardo. Okay, I'm just gonna, while we wait for our presenter, I'm gonna ask the other team to prepare themselves. I'll just briefly just give you a couple of words about what's happening tomorrow. Tomorrow, in day 2 of the seminar, which will be hosted by our colleague Argavan, we will be focusing on the BIM dictionary mostly. We will have really a great session from the community, many presenters, and then we will have a session covering the new version of the BIM dictionary. So make sure you're attending these sessions. There's also a session from our colleague Dimitri from France. You will be showing us the interactive vulgarization app for ISO 19650. So keep that in mind. You should have received the link to the other YouTube video by email. If not, please connect with us and we'll send it to you again. And lastly, tomorrow we will have a session by our colleague Eric from Canada. He will be discussing how they have used the BIMe initiative materials in their market, like the types of things that we as a community produce for free, provide for everyone to adopt and adapt. He will discuss with us how that was done in the Canadian market, in Canadian context. And last but not least, we'll see Mary again tomorrow. Will help us to understand the types of support packages available if you would like to help the community to grow its resources, to deliver more free materials. For now, I'm just going to ask the colleagues from the project F2 to join us. If you are hearing me, please join the stream. Until then, I'm just gonna we're gonna go into a very short break for 5 minutes. Okay, we'll see you all again soon.
Thank you, Bilal.
We're back, and now we have finally the cloud-based data and information management on whole asset lifecycle with NovaBIM, and we have Felix here with us to present. So please, the screen is all yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Regina. Thank you. And welcome, Felix. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Marie Grieve. I'm the Managing Director for Costello Palmer Communications, but I also support the BIMe Initiative and been helping with Bilal to arrange the event today. And I'm just here to introduce Felix to you. So first of all, Felix, thank you for sponsoring our event over these 2 days. It's very, very kind of you. So just for everyone listening, Felix Grew is the founder and shareholder of Nova Building IT, and he has been dealing with IT solutions in the area of construction cost management for more than 20 years. As part of the continuous digitization of the construction industry, Felix is actively involved in the definition of data models and the standardization of processes in specialist committees such as Building Smart around the world. One of Felix's activities is the model-based working method with BIM 5D for mapping the processes directly on the digital building model, taking into account the requirements of all partners involved in a project. Today, Felix is going to show us the benefits of NovaBIM, which is an innovative web-based cost management platform with deep 5D BIM integration. This can be accessed anywhere without the need for download or installation. So welcome, Felix. I'm going to leave the studio now, and it's now over to you. Thank you.
Thank you a lot. Thank you, Regina. Thank you, Mary. Okay, let's dive into it. I share my screen. So, hello everybody. Please, Mary, could you confirm that everybody sees my slide, my first slide? Is that true?
Yes, everyone.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So let me just introduce ourselves in a few words. Nova Building IT has been founded by Sven and myself in 2014. Our headquarters is next to Frankfurt in Germany. For today, we are 20 people working on our products. We are quite well linked to people in our let's say playing field. That means connected to specialists in terms of BIM, security of web applications. Next to our initiatives that we have in Germany, this is the GAP in Austria, ÖNORM in Switzerland, where we support the Swiss standard. We are internationally working together with your initiative, and we are also a member of the German chapter of Building Smart. To give you an idea about our clients, it's not only very small and bigger companies in the field of construction, as well as architects and planners, but also big players in the industry who manage real estate portfolios with our solution. What we recommend to our clients is that they fast and simplify the construction cost management. They do so by thinking cloud first, mobile first. I think this has great advantages. All of you know that you become independent and work from anywhere at any time on any device. And what we also tell our clients is that they should base their procedures and their workflows on standards. And one of the important ones is the Open BIM standard. Our system supports the IFC models in all of the current versions. The overall scope is to implement 3D model-based workflows, as I said. And there are three, let's say, main steps in the construction cost management. At first, you have to estimate a budget to have an idea about your project cost. In a second step, you will create bills of quantities and start tendering processes. You contract then, you award contracts then, and once you have found your subcontractors, you will make quantity takeoffs on site and manage your payments. Let's have a look at it. I will just start the system. I switched to English because I'm in France here, so it wants to make me play in French. So I connect to the service. This is our live production site. It's nothing that runs only on my machine. This is the platform where I have been logging into my account. I switched to the projects list, and I prepared for today a little project to show you how you can base your cost management on 3D models. Within the project, we find 3 different models right here. I will just open the first one to show you how the viewer displays the building. You can move the building, you can zoom, you can skip it, and whenever you select a building part, such as this timber column here, the system displays all the data that has been transferred from the CAD modeling tool like ArchiCAD, Revit, Vectorworks, Alpine, and display it here in the properties panel. You can find information about what type of IFC element it is, it's a column. You can find information about the material. And what is very important for a cost estimating process is that you also find the quantities that are linked to this building element, such as the length, such as the volume, such as site area, and so on. You can now use these properties to tell Nova to filter the data. I have been just clicking on column, and so it displays only columns. When I go further and choose, for instance, the type and variant of the column, then it displays only the ones that are corresponding to the properties I've been clicking on. Now from here, you can create a filter. I will show you. Right here, you give a name to the filter. It's my timber, 100, 150. And you see that system has, let's say, remembered all the clicks I have done on my object. And so there is no coding for filters. It's just clicking. And you can use this filter just by a little click in this project and all other projects of your work. So these filters can help us to do the cost estimation. I will show you. Let's switch to the next step, cost estimates. We create a new one. I give it a name. It's BIMe Excellence. It is based on my residential model. I save this form and open the cost estimate here in a table view. You find here now the structure of the model. The building is divided into stories. Each story has the grouped elements like columns, like footings, and so on. Now to assign costs, we can work with what we call cost elements. A cost element, I show you, is a set of work items that you need to build this element. So I have a cost element for beam made of concrete. There are 3 work items going along with that: concrete itself, the formwork, and the steel. And whenever I hit one of the cost elements, the viewer on the right-hand side displays the building parts that will be affected by this cost element. You can find inside the cost element the link to a filter. That means when we start the process of applying these cost elements, and I will do it for all those I have here, then the system runs through the building model, checks the properties, finds the filters that are going along with that, and assigns the cost elements to the building parts. In the result, you see that with a few clicks, you can estimate your columns, your footings, your walls, whatever elements you have in your building. And the quantities that are derived from a variable of the building part are used to calculate then, together with a unit price of your work item, the total cost for each work item to create the building element. And these information is then summed up to the grouped elements in the story, to the story amount, to the building amount, to the project amount. As you can further see, each of the work items can be linked to any cost structure. In this example, I linked them to Uniform 2. I can link them also to work categories or to any cost structure that is your own. And with the help of these informations, we can, with one click, derive a cost estimate which will not be based on the building itself, but on the structure of Uniform 2, for instance. So let's create a cost element based on Uniform 2, a cost estimate on Uniform 2. It is just a click. A job is started in the background, so Nova is working for us. We can continue work if we want here, but in a few seconds, the new cost estimate, which is now based on the structure of Uniformat, and I'll show you right here, allows us to retrieve the cost, for instance, for the superstructure or for the exterior closure. I'm not sure that you see it because I have to put it right here. Sorry. Oh, my system blocked. Just reload it. I think it's the screen sharing. My mouse doesn't work. Oh, it's incredible. I can encounter always anything that is not foreseen. Okay, let's use the mouse here. Okay. There's no clicking possible. I can't believe it. Okay. Yeah. Just give me one more second.
Hi, Felix. I just want to say we can still see what you're doing. It still looks great, so don't worry about it.
Okay.
Maybe if you want to just tell me a little bit how it works.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Mary, didn't get your question. What do you want me to tell you?
No, I was just going to say if you want to talk through what you were trying to display, because don't worry, we could still see what you were doing.
Okay. But I have the little problem that my mouse doesn't, and I cannot click. The clicking is not working on the interface. So to resume up is that from the building that you import into NovaAva, you can apply cost. That means work items and prices. Then you can display this cost structure into any other format like Uniform 2 or Masterclass or OmniClass or whatever. You can, by a simple click, generate bills of quantities and start a tendering process where you can invite subcontractors to submit their offers into the platform, and they also can view the model. So that helps a lot. That's the former only numerical data is now always can be linked to the 3D model of your project.
Okay, I think we have a question here. Can you see the question from Nahib?
Let me go back to StreamYard.
It says, can you please elaborate after gathering this information, how it will be transformed into the official QTO or BOQ based on country or region with their standard of their country?
First of all, it's transferred to our own database, and then we have export mechanisms that allow to, for the moment, to export this data. That means QTOs and BOQs to the German, Austrian, and Switzerland format. That means GAP, ÖNOM, and the CRB standard. What you can always do is that you export this data to Excel. The Excel file, which is generated, is let's say intelligent because the formulas in each cell are maintained. So when you hit the total, you can see that it comes from a unit price or a rate multiplied by a quantity, for instance. So we work so far in Lithuania. We have some clients in Poland. We have some clients in Israel, and they use the Excel format to share, if they want, by file, the BOQ information with their partners. On the other hand side, you do not need to export files because you can invite your partners directly on the platform to see the data and to work on it. There are different roles that you can define yourself, which then can be assigned to users. They can, defined by the role, do some functions and others not, that belongs to the role.
Have you got some example projects that you said in Lithuania they're using it? Can you give an example of the type of projects that they're doing?
Design and construction phase. Once again, just display the question.
I was saying, do you have an example of the type of projects that your clients are using? You said someone in Lithuania was using the software. Can you just give an example of the type of projects that they're using it on?
Yeah, okay. Let me have a look. Why does it, there is the controls not working. Do you see the screen or not? What do you see? Yeah, I can send you some of the models that our clients are working with. There's little ones and huge ones, up to, I think that the biggest one is 1 gigabyte of data.
Fantastic.
Was it a question? Not sure.
The question was just the types of projects, if you could just elaborate on the
Yeah, it is all over projects. It is landscape projects, it's infrastructural projects, it's MEP projects, it is architectural projects, every type of.
Okay, amazing. And what other software is it compatible with? I think someone's just asked, is it compatible with some Autodesk software?
Yes, yes. It's compatible to all the modeling softwares that are able to generate IFC files, and they all do.
Fantastic, thank you.
Okay.
I'm just looking to see if we have any other questions. Anyone have any further questions for Felix? I think we're having a little bit of IT trouble with his mouse there, so I think maybe if we can throw open some questions, if anyone would like to put their question in the chat.
So anybody who's interested in more information, I will prepare some video and I will hand it out to Bilal and you, Mary, and you may distribute them to those who are interested in. Okay. Sorry for my for the mouse. There's the control which is not allowing me to click correctly on items. So I'm sorry for that. Okay. Thank you.
Don't worry, don't worry. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time and thank you for supporting our event today. It's been fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Regina.
Thank you so much. I recently was participated in a study here in Brazil with a very expressive community of construction and architectural firms. And the BIM use, which was most relevant for them, was cost estimation. So the tool you present, your web tool, is very important. And also, I have this. I'm very gratified to NovaBIM to be a supporter of the BIMe Initiative, because we are a voluntary community, but we develop. So we need supporters, and NovaBIM has always been with us. So we are very, very grateful. And plus, you have a web tool that is of most importance.
Okay. Thank you a lot. And you can count on us. We will stay with you as long as we are. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Regina. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So I think we continue now and we go to our next session. This next session is something that is very dear with me because we are now presenting the model use template project update. In this session, the model use template team, which you call inside the BIMe Initiative Project F2, will provide an overview of the efforts conducted over the past 2 years and introduce new materials of conceptual and practical benefits. So Please, Fernanda, I will change the slide for you, okay?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, everyone. First, I'd like to thank the BIMe Initiative and Bilal for this opportunity. Lorena and I will present an update about the model use templates, or MUTs, that are part of the Information Management Project F2. These ongoing projects managed by this team, Regina Ruschel from Unicamp, Lorena Moreira from UFBA, Paula Mota from Logical and Cipro, and me from Autodesk. We started in 2018 with a call to action and a plan to launch the MUT from scratch. And by definition, it collates all relevant information about a specific model use in a structured manner. At the same year, 2018, we already had a MUT concept where we created and validated its framework, reviewed its taxonomy. We generated a glossary considering B dictionary and other academic efforts. And then we started the MUT instantiation and reviewed the existing concept. Among all deliverables, we had the MUT 4040 for clash detection, and this content was organized in a public document published in BIM Dictionary. And in the end of 2020, we developed a management strategy to recruit new teams for scaling the MUT to other expertise. So today we called the MUT 3020 team to speak up and discuss the work in progress for construction planning. It is essential to revisit the context of the model use project. Model uses are at the heart of every building information modeling process. So we ensure that every BIM implementation plan or every BIM execution plan has one or more model uses backbone. And even with existing process, the model uses are described superficially by most studies or guides. And that's why this project aims to educate and simplify the model uses knowledge. The BIM dictionary established basis for the shared knowledge. As I said before, the 44 is already publicly available, and I will post the link in the chat together with our strategy. Finally, the model use templates add value comprehension and a clue about the relationship between model uses. So that's the introduction of our project. And now Lorena is going to detail the model use templates. Thank you.
Thanks, Fernanda. Hello, everyone. So the model use templates are intended to assist practitioners in identifying the activity flows, competencies, and resources needed to execute a model use. A model use represents the interactions between a user and a modeling system. On a side note, we already have successful cases in Brazil, and you can contact us to know more about it. The template describes a model use with information structured by categories, properties, and fields. And this schema was tested and filled with the class detection MU. And from there, we extracted the actual process to be followed by recruited teams. All the MUs will have the same schema because the template was designed to cover all of them. In the recruitment process, we started with registrations, pre-selections, and interviews. And after that, we created a team profile to be fulfilled during the recruitment process based on conceptual and applied knowledge. As everyone knows, we have 76 domain model uses to create MUTs, and we prioritized 10 so far and recruited the MU 3020, construction planning, and MU 2040, generative design teams, sorry. And after that, the teams started to develop the content for these MUTs under our management during the year 2021. The 2040 MUT team had ongoing challenges and the work is on hold. The 3020 MUT, on the other hand, is in a work progress, and that will be presented now by Mohammed Mayouf. Mayouf, welcome. Join us, please.
Hi, everyone. Okay, can everybody see me? Okay, hello, everyone. And it's an absolute privilege to be here. I'm Mohammed Mayouf. I'm a senior lecturer in digital construction at Birmingham City University in the United Kingdom, and also a visiting professor at the Ziggurat Institute of Global Technology in Spain. I've been leading this team, 3020 MUT, since 2021. The project consists of an international expertise, including Maya, from an architectural background, who's currently in Italy, Angela, who's also in Italy, an architect and a construction engineer, as well as an architect, Claudia Tacos from Peru. The team, obviously, as they started the project, we presented in the past that our strategy was to encompass both an equal balance between what research and practice has managed to achieve in understanding construction planning as well as programming, and also what BIM Dictionary at BIM Excellence has achieved. And to make a ground and well understood infrastructure of our model use template, we referred to a description already established in the BIM Dictionary, which is a model use where a BIM model is being used to plan, organize, or test construction activities against constraints, for example, time, human resources, and materials. Obviously, the journey wasn't very easy. It had a lot of ups and downs, but it was a major learning curve, not only for the team and myself, but also for the FT coordinator's advice on this. The FT coordinators, Regina, Lorena, and Fernanda, as well as Paula, have worked quite closely with us to understand that such a model use template was a great major learning curve in terms of understanding the interconnection between other MUTs. And what we found out is, even before getting to the activity flows and understanding how these different MUTs are interconnected, we saw that construction planning sits at an abstract level, quite generic, and it calls other MUTs at different periods of time. Obviously, construction planning and programming as an MUT is slightly complex, and some may perceive it as only construction phase exclusive. Some may perceive it as a multi-phase inclusion. And the way we perceived it as a combination and an equal harmony between the last stages of the design as well as the entire of the construction process. And what we found out until this point is that the MUT 3020 calls other MUTs, and in this current stage, what we found that with established MUTs such as 4040, we're able to call specific activity flows that correspond to the MUT itself, whilst others at the moment is just call them in general. And this is a great learning experience because it helps us to understand that interconnection of knowledge and interconnection between these different MUTs, and the fact that we're working towards actually is a lot much more bigger than when we anticipated that at the beginning. Next slide, please.
Oops.
Oh, okay. For the time being, and following many discussion with the team as well as the F2 coordinators, what we found out that our team is working towards providing an abstract, structured, and logical sequence of the activity flow, looking at it from a define, prepare, perform, analyze, and then monitor. Obviously, these activities currently, or this activity flow list currently is a working in progress. We're working towards not only refining the flow, but more importantly, providing a knowledge gates where the different people in industry and practice, and particularly in practice, can use this as a staging gate and a staging exercise so that it can be contextualized to their own need and their own use. The whole emphasis here is a great understanding of the criticality of the data and information, the cycle that it moves in or moves through, right from the later stages in the design to the beginning stages of the construction to the during construction phase, which follows after the beginning of the construction cycle or sequence, as you see in front of you, and how I can monitor a continual feedback process that can benefit different stakeholders at different stages. That's it from my side, and I look forward for your questions. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to see this presentation. It was a pleasure to participate in the development. And I don't know if we have questions here, but could you give us more insights of the development of the difficulties we encountered, the relationships among model users? I think that the basic property is the key to give you the insights, Mohammed, of the calling of other MUTs, of model users.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more, Regina. So the basic property, the way we started it, we looked into what research has produced so far, and really with relation to construction planning and programming, if we look at BIM and how it embarked the market about 15 years ago, and then how it evolved, we can recognize that probably construction planning and programming is one of the most advanced, progressively, aspects within BIM in particular, and how it actually interconnects with so many different disciplines. And when we look into the basic definition provided by the BIM dictionary, we found out that it is abstract and at the same time focused. And it provided us a nice insight to know on what grad we should stand. So myself and the team, when we looked into it at that point, we were extremely careful about the use of the taxonomy and the terminologies, so that it does not restrict the value to a particular stakeholder, because unfortunately, and this is not something, it's not a mistake by the industry or researchers, is that a bridge of continual development and how industry tackle it in a certain way, research and tackle it in another way. When people look at construction planning and programming, immediately they refer, oh, it's 4D BIM. No, it is a lot much more than 4D BIM. It actually includes so many different aspects that go into during the design, later stages in the design, detailing of the design, the specifications and all the pre-work that go into the construction phase. And then later on, the value is being recognized during the simulation of the project. But then, yes, you're absolutely right. The basic property was our main gate where it unveiled all that complexity, which we recognized it later on. That's why we spent long time defining and repurposing the extended description as well as the purpose of the MUT 3020.
We have a question here from Saibu. Is the measurement in accordance with NRM2?
New rules of measurement. Okay, one of the least questions I have expected in here. Now, with relation to construction planning and programming, the costing element in this is quite niche. Okay, so it's not very relevant at this point. NRM2 obviously is a huge pole of discussion to talk about in here, and how we map the costing. I remember publishing a paper back in 2019 specifically talking about how 5D BIM in particular should be a compilation of different levels that consist of looking at data at different levels of complexity. Certainly, it's an element integrated within the model use template, but it's not directly what the model use template is aimed at, if that makes sense. I hope this answers your question. But NRM2 definitely is one of the, overly discussed topics in here, because it's about structured costing according to what the RICS has provided in the United Kingdom.
And I have a question to all of you. Do all of you think, how can we be simple to our approach, maintain simple, so that we can have the focus that Mesner pointed us in the first session?
Okay, do you want to start, Lorena or Fernanda, or shall I have a go first? Okay, I'll start first, and then I think Lorena and Fernanda can probably carry on. Obviously, model use template journey, ever since we started until now, it's totally differently understood. The intention for it is multitude of values to different stakeholders, both at research and industry channels. I think maintaining simplicity and logic and logic sensing and structuring is going to take us a long way in here. Yes. It's very important to understand that this is a long, continual journey. One of the things that we've encountered in 3020 in particular was the fact that we noticed, because it calls other MUTs, it is very highly likely that this MUT is going to be a long-term, continual, progressive MUT, which we may need to actually look into how it connects with other MUTs, same level of abstraction or even lower ones, and we see what activities and what actions it calls. Obviously, the experience in 4040 was absolutely different and was quite complex on its own merits. So, Fernanda and Lorena can elaborate on this. But from a 3020 perspective, logic, simplicity, abstraction, and interconnection with the lower levels is the main key to succeed in this.
I think that we're tackling complexity here, because we always thought of model uses or BIM uses as encapsulated process. And this choice of model use that we did here showed us that it's not encapsulated a model use in itself. Model uses dialogues with other model uses. Model uses depends on other model uses. So, and this may be also an answer for this question here from Saman Davari. Do you prioritize which model use you should be extending and delivering? If yes, based on which criteria? I think we didn't have an answer for this, but now we do have one.
I will add some contribution to the first question. I think that's what make the model use simple is merge all the data of this model use in a single source of truth, right? So we created some components to make this structured data, considering or including workflow that everyone needs to know to execute a model use. The activity list that makes everyone aware of what should be done, right? For instance, in the clash detection activity list.
We're also going to a macro workflow that can be reused among model users, right, Fernanda?
Exactly. And all the technology infrastructure that should be there considered at the BIM execution plan. So the software infrastructure, the hardware infrastructure. So everything is available for a BIM manager, for instance, or anyone who is trying to design a BIM project, access and to know what should be done. I think that's what make it simple. When we try to find something like this, we actually found it, but it spreads all over the internet or all over the guides and some academic stuff. So I think that's the main contribution. Make a semantic approach and structure that data together in a template. And about the second question, we created a matrix and try to rank all the 76 domain model uses by some criteria. For instance, the more recurrent or more common model uses that we see in the market being used, and another columns to create a weight, right? So we ranked 10 common model uses to start this job of spreading the knowledge with other expertise and other teams. And we started this with the construction planning and the MyUF teams.
And now the dependencies that we have found among 3020 with construction planning to others may also point out which will be the following MUs to be developed. Lorena.
About the first question, it's not easy, but with the process, as Fernanda said, with the flows that we put in the public, for the public, and we are trying to clarify the process. So with all the things, with this criteria that we are doing, we are trying to clarify this to public, to the community. And I think it's not easy. We have a lot of discussions about that, but we're trying to make it easy for all.
Yes. Well, soon we may make new recruitment process. So pay attention to the notifications in the BIMe Initiative page. And we are going now to 2 hours and 35 minutes. So I think we are coming to an end. Thank you so much for presenting this great project. We thank everybody that is here with us for us in this seminar. We had a very good first day. So see you tomorrow again, where BIM Dictionary will be thoroughly discussed. See you tomorrow then. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you all for the beautiful presentation. Thank you so much for our host. Just a reminder, you should have received the link for session 2 by email. If you haven't received it, please connect with us and we'll send it to you. Prepare some good questions for tomorrow. It's the focus would be both on the community and also on new semantic structures, ontologies, etc. So it will be a mix of deep dive into the research behind the glossary as well as the community effort. And also you will hear about how BIMe initiative materials have been deployed in practice to help drivers to develop macro adoption approaches across the whole market. Thank you so much for attending and see you tomorrow.